Okay, so gonna be giving a talk today on something that I've been doing lately that is a part of the Bhakti Yoga path that probably isn't like as commonly like understood or really done, but is actually a relatively easy thing to do, and which I'm just going to give a brief explanation of it. And so basically, this is called like traveling in your Swarup. So basically, your Swarup in Hare Krishna philosophy is what's known as your soul body. So basically, everyone has a soul body, and this pretty much resides in like Vaikuntha or Goloka, and those states are ever present. So pretty much the associated body that goes with those states is also ever present. So in that sense, we're always eternally residing in Vaikuntha and Goloka. It's just that if we're in the material world, we're not aware of that at this time. So basically, all you have to do to get into your Swarup and then start traveling around and actually performing your service in your Swarup, as mentioned by Bhakti Vinod in texts like Jaiva Dham, etc., which is pretty much about doing your service in your Swarup. So if you're interested in this, um, it's relatively easy to do, provided that you've actually been doing the chanting and the meditation and opening up into higher states. And I guess you could say that this type of work requires a certain qualification. There's a qualification that comes along with it. But once you are qualified, it's reasonably easy to actually do the service itself. So basically, how I'm presenting this is just that it's a relatively easy thing to do. It's very close to what is taught by many shamans as shamanic journeying. So, if you've heard of shamanic journeying, the main difference between this and the shamanic journeying is that in shamanic journeying, you're generally traveling within the material cosmos. So, you basically have a tree that you're orientating yourself in. The tree goes up to kind of Brahma Loka, and then it's got its roots going down into the underworld, and the shaman basically can go on different journeys in these places in order to like perform different tasks that need to be done and things like that. So so basically, like in the shamanic way of journeying, this journeying can be done either whilst chanting the Maha Mantra, or you can do it while lying down on the floor or on the bed. Some people put, like, say, a towel or something over their face as well. It depends what you want to do. Once you get used to the technique, it's relatively easy to do, and you can even do it um, just while sitting there in a seat, just casually or something like that. Essentially, the what activates the Swarup is pretty much having access to, from pretty much your causal state, non-dual state, and ecstatic state, will all give you access to some extent to the heavenly realm. Also, if you've seen my video, the 25 aspects of divinity, you've got these 25 elements that are all important to spiritual development. Well, you're looking at pretty much having a 4 or a 5 rating on most of those of your spiritual development. Will pretty much, you should have your Swarup activated by that point. So so yeah, it is relatively easy to do once it's actually been activated and made available. So personally, for me, I was at least aware of the presence of heaven mainly through reading Emanuel Swedenborg's books, and just had a kind of a general continuous consciousness of the presence of the heaven, and sort of was relating to my heavenly society a little bit. As Swedenborg explains, we all have a heavenly society that we're associated with. So, and then just through drawing more and more attention to that, gradually came to the place where access was granted, and then I could actually go to the heavenly realm through meditation. So what I'm doing is taking the not so easy task of explaining how other people can do this, because really it's so much fun, and really it's such a kind of fun part of what the Hare Krishna path is, that it kind of is good to explain it, really, so other people can give it a go. So there's like a little bit of information's been given about this already in like books like Jiva Dham, but not a lot of information has really been given on how to do the technique specifically. I don't know if there's been gurus in the past who did teach this specific techniques, but pretty much like there's just some general rules given, and yeah, it's up to the devotee to be able to do it. Also, in sort of in some new age circles, it gets around doing travel in, say, an astral body or something like that. Again, that's more like within the material creation. I'm talking about actually getting into the soul body or the God body, and then moving around. And part of the reason for making this video is actually to show the types of activities which you can like engage in your Swarup in order for that to be productive, and how to actually do devotional service in your Swarup whilst in your either heavenly society in Vaikuntha, or within with your eternal associates in Vrajadam, so and pretty much in Goloka. So I'm going to be making a video on cosmology, and this will elucidate that a little bit, how basically there's these three realms. You've got the hells, you've got Bhumandala, which is the earth, and you've got the upper heavens, and then you pretty much have outside space and time, you've got Vaikuntha, and that's like Vaikuntha is like one main realm of heaven. That's sort of like where liberated souls go, and the relationship between the devotee and Krishna is a little bit more distant in Vaikuntha, but it's also like it's a very spiritual realm and stuff. It is actually heaven. And then above Vaikuntha is pretty much the realm of Goloka, and these are like unlimited worlds, so they're like extremely huge. And so Goloka is the only one that doesn't get destroyed when the cosmic devastation happens. So even Vaikuntha is destroyed at the end of the cosmic manifestation, but Goloka isn't destroyed, simply because Goloka is the only one which is actual pure reality. So it's a completely it is the only reality. Everything else is like a semblance of that reality. So pretty much in the path or the evolution of the soul is kind of a journey from nothingness or like no consciousness to, over the process of many births, gaining more and more consciousness until finally coming to a place of having love. And at that stage you're pretty much transported at death to the spiritual world, and then in the spiritual world you carry on with like your activities. You know, if you read Emanuel Swedenborg, like you can go to church there, you can do your job, you know, you do a service. These are all transformed versions. If I'm going to make a video called Transformations. So of course it looks like this world because everyone's sort of doing a job, whereas it's not like in this world where everyone's doing a job. They're doing like fruitive activities. The service that happens in Vaikuntha and Goloka is actually the opposite, is the opposite version of working. It's actually a transformed version of work. So once you get into your Swarup and you can look around, like you'll see pretty much like the realm is pretty much like connected to your own mind, so the way in which you perceive it will be specific to you. So it's connected to the reality of Goloka. In other words, you can actually do things in your Swarup, but you have to understand what's going on in a type of symbolic way. So it's understood that these things are kind of symbolically happening within your consciousness, and that's how it's understood, kind of thing. So take for instance, when I travel in my Swarup, there's a lot of cars and stuff present. So cars are obviously something that comes from this planet. There's cars, but when I'm in the Swarup, there's cars. So I mean, things like that are not. They're actually determined partially by your own perception of what Goloka is. It's sort of interpreted through your own matrix, and then given life by Krishna himself. So yeah, pretty much what activates the Swarup is having either being at the causal state, as in your soul body, or the non-dual state, or the ecstatic state, will all give access to the Swarup. And then otherwise, you probably like an integral stage, maybe a green or integral stage, and about a 4 or 5 on most of the aspects of divinity of what is spiritual evolution. So once you get into your Swarup, like the way that you do it is like you can either lie down on the floor or you can chant the Maha Mantra, and then basically you should have a consciousness or a presence of that realm already in your mind. And then basically what you do is you just will yourself into that form, into the Swarup form, and then by using the spiritual senses, so at this stage your spiritual eyes should be opened, you should have the spiritual senses, as like Prabhupada taught about your spiritual senses being activated. So you have your spiritual senses activated, and they're the senses that you use for actually perceiving this realm. So a good way to start in this practice, if you haven't tried it before, is pretty much to do the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, because they're pretty much like prototype eternal pastimes that you can meditate on in active visualization and then start to participate in. So you can sit down, start chanting, and then just select a pastime from one of the pastimes that appeals, like especially ones that are in sync with whatever your ras is. If you've chosen a specific ras, like conjugal or friendship or something, choosing a pastime which is in a type of synchronization with what your ras is can be quite handy. Otherwise, you can just choose any pastime, and then basically start to enter into that pastime through visualization. And so then you can see this pastime which is happening. Then you can like basically participate in the pastime as well. And at that stage, then you start using a type of spontaneousness with it in order to get between what you're visualizing and what is actually appearing before you through your spiritual senses. So it's kind of a mixture in that you're using your conscious mind to, in some ways, navigate your way through the type of visualization, and in other ways the senses are open and then the pastime is actually happening. That's mainly a pastime version, so that's not quite the same as actually traveling to Vaikuntha or Goloka itself. So you can use the pastimes to get used to the idea of going into this other world and then doing things and then coming back out again. So you can do participation in Leela for a while, and then you pretty much get into your actual spiritual form in the realm itself. So the main way is just that you just switch on your kind of spiritual senses, and go into the state, and then basically there's a society that's associated with you, and there's other people that are there already, sort of like angels, or whatever you could call them, angels, or residents of Vaikuntha, residents of Goloka, connecting up with them. Generally, the way that you do it at this level is that you have like a head gopi. If you want to do this properly, like basically you have a head gopi, or someone who is in charge of what your service actually is in your Swarup. So that could be Krishna or Radha. You can just choose Krishna or Radha, or there might be some other gopi or something that appears to you, or that maybe you've got a connection with somehow. So you can connect through that gopi, and she's pretty much in charge of whatever your service is. Then you've got your, if you're in the conjugal rasa, then there's the rasa of like the adultery rasa or whatever, which is like the transformed version of adultery. So like adultery is the lowest thing on earth, but in Vaikuntha it's like the highest thing. So then pretty much you you have your other partner that you're with as well, and then so then basically the pastimes that are happening in your Swarup will be centered around those essential characters, your main gopi, around Krishna, around your other partner that you have. All this stuff is pretty much written down in Jivadam. And then there's basically just friends and all these sort of things. So I'll just get into what sort of things that you would actually do in the Swarupa itself. So what I would recommend is that if you've heard my devotional transformative practice model, so I'm going to be putting that together soon, the devotional service, or DTP. So that's pretty much your model for the types of activities that you could productively do in your Swarup in order to actually do your service in that form. So basically in the DTP, the activities are organized into Bhakti, Jnana, Karma, Raja, and Tantra. And basically you do the most of Bhakti, then you do a little bit less of Jnana, a little bit less of Karma, even less of Raja, and the least of Tantra. And there's different activities that are associated with those different modules. If you're in the material world, then the modules that you're doing pretty much are reflected in your practice. So say for your Bhakti module, you'd be doing chanting or something. But in the Swarup, it's like the transformed version of the practice itself. So you don't have to chant so much in your Swarup. You could try chanting in your Swarup, is fine. But more so it would actually be relating to other, mainly to Radha and Krishna, relating to Radha and Krishna in your Swarup and the residents of Vaikuntha. So mainly just expressing love and doing loving relationship pastimes, things like that, all come under this general area of bhakti. So that's one of the main areas that you'll be doing most of the service will be in bhakti, and that'll be in actually doing this relationship through the Swarup. Then basically you get into Jnana. So on earth, your Jnana module is pretty much like reading scripture and like doing your journaling and stuff like that. Whereas in these are just basic ideas as well, so these aren't like set in stone or anything. This is just my basic insights into what kind of things you can do there. So for Jnana, basically having different experiences in your Swarup will give you a type of Jnana or knowledge. So they're based more on experience than actual, like, I'm going to read this book. It's more like I'll be doing different things in my Swarup, and that will actually teach me about the spiritual world, and will therefore fulfill the Jnana module in the Swarup, if you can understand that. Next is the Karma module, and that's pretty much your specific service that you're engaged in your Swarup. So the types of services that are available in Vaikuntha and Goloka, there's like a millionfold more different types of service than what we see in this material world. So there's a whole bunch of different services, and they're all like very joyful to do, and they're all based on fun. You don't have like angry bosses or anything, but you know you can get a boss. You can get like a boss who's like who you're working for, and you find what your particular service that you want to do in your Swarupas, and then just at set times you go and perform your service in your Swarup at maybe you have a specific location that you go to. If you have a house in Goloka or something, then you travel from your house to your place of work, and then you basically do your service there, and then at any time you can just come back out of the Swarup if you need to, or you can travel back to your house again and then come back out of it, or whatever you're doing. So that's basically your karma module, is your service that you're doing. And then basically you've got your Raja module. So your Raja module is pretty much types of meditation and stuff like that that you actually do in your Swarup. Mainly like certain meditative things, or just general like exercise of your spiritual form that you can do. And then the Tantra module is pretty much like going to different holy places in Goloka, or going to the temples that are there, or you can have like a deity in your home of your Swarup, where you actually do your deity worship there, and you can do your Tantra module like that. So that just gives a basic idea of the types of things that you can do whilst in your Swarup. This may sound very strange, like, okay, you can actually travel through like this, but if you look at the map that I'm presenting on it's like a expansion of the four quadrants into 5 quadrants over your map of reality. If you look at the map of reality, basically you can see how your soul lines up with your actual angelic culture that you're in, and your god body lines up with a god culture. So these things are actually real, and anyone can contact them pretty much, provided that they are meditating and that they get into these states. Like I say, it does require a reasonably high amount of ability already just to do it. As far as I know, I mean, it may be accessible at any level, but I'd imagine that you need those states actually opened up in order to do this type of stuff. But yeah, and that's basically the end of the talk. And yeah, that's about traveling in your Swarup. It's a part of the Hare Krishna path, which is really enjoyable, and yeah, I hope that you feel inspired to give it a go and have a go at trying to do it, and have fun basically. Cool, thank you. Hare Krishna.